Hello and welcome to your Mad to Glad guest interview. Today we have Dr. Andrew Litchy, who is a naturopathic doctor, and he not only works with kids and families, but he is part of the team that works with children, the integrative team for children with challenges. And if I say that wrong, Drew, please correct me later. As well, he is part of the University of Minnesota and the National College for Natural Medicine. So, Drew, thank you so much for taking time to be here and welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Now, why don't you just share a little bit about your story and what it is you do?
Well, sure. So I'm a naturopathic doctor, and naturopathic doctors, we're a blend of conventional medicine and so-called alternative medicine. We incorporate nutrition, specialized testing, and other modalities besides medication and surgery. So that's what the profession does. Little how I got here. I was initially going to be a medical doctor in my pre-med, and training in pre-med, I worked at Regions Emergency Center. It's a level 1 trauma center. And so while I was there, I saw the best of conventional medicine and some of the worst of it. And so over the 4 years I was there, I went from being pretty sure I was going to be a medical doctor to, psychiatry, osteopathy. And then at the last minute, I discovered naturopathic medicine, which was a really perfect fit for me. I incorporated the science and the rigor of physician-level training and offered more solutions for chronic health issues and complicated health issues than appeared to me were available in conventional medicine, which does some things incredibly well and other things not so well.
Mm-hmm. What are the top problems that you solve for people?
Well, I help people ultimately help their body work better and function better. I work looking for the root cause of problems, and root cause, there can be a lot of things as we start asking why this is happening, why is that happening, why, and beyond what the symptom is and to what problem in the body. So this frequently goes to digestion, frequently goes to sources of inflammation in the body. There's other reasons, other kinds of common imbalances I help people with, but it often goes to food and digestion.
Yeah, and that's something I know that we talk quite a bit here, and you know that I work with a lot of kids with ADHD, on the autism spectrum, sensory processing disorder, and some of the commonalities that I notice behaviorally is that behaviors are really explosive, that mood is really irritable, and there's a roller coaster, so things don't feel peaceful at home. What are some basic things that could be occurring digestively contributing to these behaviors and moods?
Well, quite a bit. I think a blanket statement would be inflammation in the digestive tract. Inflammation is immune system activation, and so the immune system is ramped up for some reason in the digestive tract. This can be caused by a variety of things. Infection is a possibility. Problematic foods that the body has identified as problems and the stimulating the immune system is another reason. And so inflammation in the gut leads to inflammation in the whole body. The gut's really interesting. I don't know if you've talked about this. It is the largest area of immune system interface in the entire body. The immune system is our interface to the outside world, separates inside self from other. And this happens primarily in mucous membranes, right? Our skin is very good at blocking out everything and protecting us. But where we have mucous membranes, it's kind of semi-permeable, and that's where we take things in and, interface more closely with the outside world. So we have things like our nose and our eyes, and our entire digestive tract is basically one big interface with the outside world. So when there is problems with the digestive tract, this affects our immune system greatly. And when the immune system is activated inappropriately, this affects brain chemistry. This affects the ability for the body to work appropriately because it's not supposed to be operating in chronic inflammation.
Great. And, when I'm sure that parents who are listening to this are thinking, wow, diet and nutrition and inflammation, it's such a big topic. And a lot of people talk about the elimination diet as a place to start. But when people have a really challenging child, it's hard to put energy into something that's so aggressive like that takes so
Hmm.
much energetic resources. What are some baby
Right.
steps? What are some baby steps that parents can take at home right now if they're worried about inflammation and food sensitivities or allergies?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of steps to an elimination diet, and some basic steps to be taken. And you can look for the biggest cost benefit for changing diet. I think generically there are three areas that when you make these changes, we will expect to see some changes. The first is in artificial flavorings and colorings. These are a big deal, particularly for ADHD and autistic kiddos. Now, artificial flavors and colorings are approved by the FDA and our food source, right? But we have studies that show that the approved doses in adults without attention problems lead to changes in attention and bring on ADHD symptoms. How much so more for smaller kids that are prone to these kinds of sensitivities? So a quick thing you can do is try to avoid foods with artificial flavorings and colorings, with brightly colored candies and so on. And you just take a look at the back of the box and can you pronounce it? Do you know what it is? If not, you might want to think about not having that particular food. So that's the first and easiest thing to do, because that will allow you to keep buying foods pre-made. You'll just be choosing less processed options. And then the next two steps, which are more generic, would be removing gluten and removing dairy in that order. And removing gluten can be quite helpful. Unfortunately, positive effects sometimes take up to 3 weeks to a couple months to show up. Frequently with kiddos, you will start noticing it immediately within 4 hours at the most after a gluten meal when you have some period of abstinence from it. So those are 3 easy steps. Yeah.
Great. I appreciate you sharing that. I have a cousin, when we were kids, we would always go to events that had red Kool-Aid. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like he was obsessed with this red Kool-Aid, and he would drink it and he would drink it and drink it until he threw up.
Yep.
And that was his cycle, and he's really sensitive, we found, to the red dyes. Can you
Yep.
describe a little bit about that addiction or craving cycle that happens? Because a lot of parents will say, but my kid will only drink red Kool-Aid, or he'll only eat the white food with white
Sure.
bread and macaroni and cheese.
Well, a couple things about that. Addiction cycles are not about optimal choices, right? We look at addiction in adults. These are not about making correct choices. These are about making choices that stimulate the person in a way that somehow makes them feel different and better. Now, we think of more problematic behaviors and substances, classically when we think of addiction, but guess what? Sugar and inflammatory foods act on very similar brain pathways. In fact, sugar, the reward system of sugar acts on the same pathway that alcohol does. And so it's a similar brain chemistry with sugar addiction, and sugar addiction is very prevalent. The other thing is when you have this inflammatory increase with foods, it stimulates the body, it stimulates the system, and this can be desirable. And so you're getting kind of a reward, getting kind of a short-term stimulation with it, which can appear to be desirable short-term. Now, what happens after that initial stimulation is problems, and problems can be happening even while the benefit is occurring. Red Kool-Aid is a perfect example, though. That's a classic problematic food for ADHD kids. You have the red dye, bad. Artificial flavorings, bad. And then the huge dose of sugar with it. Yep, that's going to make people hyper, even if they don't have ADHD. Right?
Really, I really appreciate you sharing, because you're able to describe it so thoroughly. And, what I would relate this to is a lot of my parents who are going through parent coaching understand that behaviorally what's occurring in their child's brain when they yell at their child or they get into a battle of wills is they're meeting fire with fire. And for intense brain kiddos, they're looking for that energy match because it releases adrenaline and cortisol. And I speak similarly, where it's kind of like it creates this addiction cycle. And although it's not ideal, it's something that the brain unconsciously is seeking, that energy match. And so
Right.
I think it's so important to consider that parent coaching is the outside in. What can you do environmentally to calm things down internally? Where you're talking about the inside out, what can you put in your body that will affect behavior and mood outwardly?
Right. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, you've already given away some really good information. How does a parent know if they or their child would benefit from the work that you do?
Well, there's a couple signs. When when kids are having emotional dysregulation that's not being addressed with external approaches like you do and talk about, that's a sign that food intolerance can be in play. When I first started practicing, this was very surprising to me how much emotional regulation is associated with food intolerance. I would not have expected that, but it's when kids can stop eating inflammatory foods. Wow, amazing things can happen, and it's a barrier is overcome. Other things to watch out for, of course, obvious digestive problems, constipation, stomach aches, diarrhea, smelly gas. That's another sign. And as you watch your kids' behavior, how do they act after they eat certain foods? With young kids, they get a rash on their cheeks frequently after they eat inflammatory foods. We think of that as a cute little kid rash, but that's actually a sign of food intolerance. And kids under 4, under 3 do this really well. They'll eat the food and immediately get this rash very quickly, and that's a good warning sign that something's going on that's affecting their immune system negatively and affecting their gut health negatively.
Perfect. And there's 2 age groups I want to call out here. One of them is our infants, because sometimes parents will say, these diapers are so smelly, we all want to clear out of the house. And
yes.
when you mentioned smelly gas, that's true for infants too, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Poop should not smell horrifically. It should not smell like bile. It should smell like poop, and baby poop smells a little different. But when it is not smelling correctly or looking correctly, something is going on with it, whether there's a problem in digestion, whether there's a problem in food choice. With smelly gas, what you're having is improperly digested starches and proteins, and this makes a smelly gas. When we digest something fully, it should not be smelly like that. And so those are signs that something is going amiss in digestion.
Good to know. The second age group that I want to call out are the kids who are ages 9 and up, so let's say 9 to 16. Food intolerances tend to be harder to find, I think, because there's more complexity when you have a child who's in late elementary or older school years.
Right.
What are some symptoms that a child of that age might have some intolerances or digestive difficulties?
Well, you still have the classic issues, stomach aches. They can start talking about reflux and heartburn at that point, which actually happens in those kids. Behavioral things, and you see odd behaviors around food as well. Craving certain things, only eating certain things. So these are directly around food. And when you see the big emotional problems, attention problems, that is one thing to consider. That food choice and nutritional status could be involved. Yeah. And it gets complicated with these older kids because they have will now and they have options to not do it. And this is where testing can be very helpful because they have will and they have logic, and when you can show them the test, sometimes that is helpful for them to understand, yes, there is actually something objectively happening, and mom and dad are not just being a little funny again. This is a real problem that everyone can see. So right. I find that to be helpful in that group. Yeah.
Great. That's so great to know. Well, I know from my experience as a parenting coach that usually when I work with somebody for 4 sessions, behaviors reduce dramatically. And if it doesn't, if something starts getting stuck, that's when we start looking at, do we need to look at another resource for nutrition, for something like chiropractic, something like sensory processing and occupational therapy. So I really appreciate you saying this, because nutrition can be a first stop resource, or it can be a resource if somebody's trying to layer in strategies. Now, parents who are watching right now are, I'm sure, feeling really hopeful, because you've given away so much great information that I'm sure that your message is aligning with them. What can parents who work on food stuff with their kids, what are some of the benefits they can expect to see?
Well, they can expect emotional regulation to be increased, the ability to attend to tasks and increased executive function can happen as well. And there can be some general health improvements too. And we've been talking mostly about behavior and emotions, but this kind of work affects general health, and it reduced sicknesses, reduced number of colds, allergy symptoms can improve, and other systemic illnesses can be improved with this as well. So a healthier kid in general. Non-specifically, parents say quite a bit. It's like we see these little things, and it feels like there's just more health in our child, and it's noticeable. So this kind of thing.
Great. And I know that I personally receive nutritional support, and when I started, I was coming in every 1 week or every 2 weeks, and I faded to something that's more maintenance. So I personally get nutritional support every 4 weeks to 6 weeks, because my system is stable now, and I've received many benefits with waking up energized, feeling more positive. What is the typical plan for a child when they're receiving this type of support?
Sure. So initially, we meet more regularly. How it usually goes is we have an intake appointment where we talk about the whole life story. And with children and adolescents, that generally is about an hour to hour and a half at most. So it's a relatively detailed but short intake. Then we order testing if appropriate, get the first treatment plan, and follow up, and usually 2 to 3 weeks at that point, because we're waiting for testing to come back. After that, I work with most people on a monthly follow-up basis because it takes a while to implement changes, and what we're doing is we're looking for long-term things. Sometimes people prefer to come in more frequently, but monthly is average. And then hopefully within 3 visits or so, we're stretching it out and people are understanding what they're doing. Now, this may change if we're working on different problems, but this is how it goes if people are strictly working with food, which many people choose to do.
Great. And I know we were just talking the other day, and we were saying the time that people usually don't want to work on food tends to be the holidays, right?
Sure. Oh, and this is worth mentioning. This is food's scary for people, right? Food is a lot more than fuel. Emotions, family, love, tradition are all wrapped up in this. And so my philosophy is not one of strictness, right? This is not about cutting out cake for the rest of your life and never having it again. No, this is usually a therapeutic diet for a short period of time, and then we try to bring back the foods as much as possible. So there can be cake and ice cream at birthday parties, and that can be tolerated well, and people know how much is too much, because restriction is not the point, and it's not balanced, and it's not what I like to encourage. I like to encourage healing, and healing involves flexibility and choice, and that's where we're going with this. So yes, there will be holidays, right, and there will be vacations, and those are chances to maybe maintain the diet if that's appropriate, or maybe start to explore, because that's what's going to happen anyway. Seeing what happens, and not dealing with strictness here. That's not what food's about.
Right. We're not trying to layer in any emotional shame or judgment at all. And I know that you're very grounded, and you're very loving, and you're very accepting wherever a person is coming in from. And so that's my plug for you. I appreciate that about you. And
Great.
So why don't you just share how people can get in touch with you?
Sure. The phone number for my office is 612-259-8529. That will connect you to my reception staff. I have a website. It's kind of long. It's www.neighborhoodnaturopathic.com. And if you Google that'll come up. If you Google my name, that will show up. And I offer 15-minute complimentary consults so we can talk to each other and see if it's a good match or not. So those are ways to get in touch with me, and you can also schedule online on the website.
Great. And do you work with people locally in Minnesota, or do you work virtually as well?
I do both. Ideally, people will come to the first visit in person. Often that's not possible. And when people are at a distance, I do sometimes work entirely virtually. Lab tests can be ordered for shipped out of state, and we can work that way, and work with people out of the country as well. It's nice to see people in person the first time if possible, but it can be flexible in that.
Great, absolutely. Well, just so that everybody hears it again, it's neighborhoodnaturopathic.com. You can Google Dr. Andrew Litchy, and his name will pop up. I will be sure to write it in the blog below as well so that you can reference it and just click it, easy to find. Dr. Andrew Litchy, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time sharing with everybody who is looking for help.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Definitely. See you later.
See you later.